Hello, welcome to the Alchemists Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people.
I'm Emily.
And I'm KristaLyn, and we get to talk about the longest day of the year this time. I'm so excited. Okay, so here's my bittersweet thing when it comes to the solstice, is it's the longest day of the year, which I love, but it's also the longest day of the year, which makes me sad because it's going to get shorter from this point on.
Yeah. It's always surprising to me how early in the summer, like air quotes, it like happens.
Yeah.
Because it feels like just the start of summer and the days already start to get shorter, which is always just weirdly, it always takes me by surprise. I'm always like, why? Why are we getting shorter right now? It's supposed to be summer. The night's supposed to be long, which they are. It's not like you really notice the decrease in sunlight until, August really, or the end of August, but still it's just, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm grappling with in that same vein is that between the equinoxes, it's the increase of light or the prominence of light. And I'm just trying to view things from equinox to equinox with midpoints in between. And that helps because it's like, oh, we've reached the middle of this point. And that to me doesn't make me feel quite as cheated out of my daylight. I covet daylight, which is really weird because I have a night chart. I was born in the first hour of night. It was at moonrise and sunset, actually, which is kind of neat. But I am definitely someone who, when the sun starts going down, my energy is like, oh, hey, it's going to be dark soon. We go to bed when that happens.
So funny. I've been a night owl forever, and I was born during the day, like right in the smack dab middle of the afternoon.
Should do some research on that. That sounds cool.
Yeah, I've always loved nighttime. My energy distinctly changes though. And if any of you all listening out there, oh, by the way, I'm Emily and that's KristaLyn.
I think we did say that.
Oh, did we? Okay.
Yeah,
I was just making sure. I was like,
we
don't
didn't
remember.
preface that like I'm an astrologer and you're an extremely talented psychic medium and activator, but now you know.
No, I was like, did we say that? I can't even remember. I don't know. It's been a really long week for me. But if any of you out there listening kind of feel the same way about your energy changing between night and day, please let us know because I think it's always really fascinating. I just like it. But I feel like a lot of the time, and this is the Gemini in me, and I'm going to acknowledge that during the day I'm one person, during the night I'm a different person, 100%. If the second the night transitions over, it's like a total shift for me energetically. It's not like I definitely, present differently or something like that, but energetically there's a shift there. And it's not even like I'm tired now at nighttime. It's like, oh, my brain thinks different and I can sometimes do better writing at night or this or that or whatever, just because of that shift, which is very interesting.
I'm married to a Gemini as well. And I can confirm that my partner is the same way. There is a version of Dan during the day. And then there is a version that Dan enters into during the night, which is one of the great benefits of the fact that we decided to sleep in separate rooms because our sleep habits were just so different and our rhythms were so different. It made our relationship all the stronger. So nobody needs to worry about that. But me being able to go to sleep when I want to sleep gives Dan the ability to go do all the other things. And, it's so much more productive and aligned. And okay, so I'm just going to say Emily sneezed and I stopped because I wanted to say bless you.
I muted my sneezing.
Like everything stopped and I had to explain. But yeah, so it is really more about, I love replacing the idea of routine with the word rhythm. You can follow your rhythm. And I think that we each have honored our rhythm to the point where it meets up and to the points where it diverges and allow that to happen, which I think is really cool. And speaking of rhythm, that is part of the whole idea of Cancer season, AKA the summer solstice. We're entering into a new rhythm.
Yeah. I love the summer solstice. I always get really either prophetic dreams or past life dreams or like very intense spiritual work dreams on the solstice. So I encourage everyone who's listening, like pay attention to your dreams the night of the solstice, either solstice. Equinoxes too, they're just not quite as hyperly charged for me personally. But on the solstice, energy is just so incredibly intense. I have viewed past lives before I was even really spiritual and I just had to write everything down. Have done work with guides and different, sort of astral projection stuff, all those different things. It's just like a really hyper activated sleep time, especially at the summer solstice, because your sleep is so shortened because the night is so short. It just is an incredibly activated working subconsciously space.
Yeah. And it is
Mhm.
interesting looking at the astrology for that week. It's an interesting thing because there's something and energetically I feel this. You may have picked up on it the same way or maybe even different. This is definitely a winding down kind of summer solstice. I
Mhm.
think because it's a summer solstice that's like bookending a period, and I've talked with some astrologer friends about this. The second half of 2022 really seems to be the last bit before we enter into a time of really new and changing and shifting. Come 2023 through 2026, even, there's a lot of time of outer planets going into new signs, sometimes retrograding back and then going in again, and just taking turns. Where in 2020, I believe it's 2026, everybody shifts over to a new sign and it's like new world, because
Mhm.
that's all, it's all transpersonal or like overarching for the entire sort of collective in that experience. And
Mhm.
so we have a lot of just, we were here, now we're going to this new thing that is building up and locking in over the next like 3 years after 2022 completes some of the unfinished business that's been going on for the last 2 years or so. So
Mhm.
this summer solstice is saying like, okay, this is the beginning of that end, which is
Mhm.
kind of interesting because it is the beginning of the end of the light as well.
Mhm.
And so, jumping into the astrology a little bit, we do have Cancer season showing up. So to all of the Cancer suns out there, happy birth month. That's amazing. My mom and my niece both are in this month with you. And if you have other Cancer placements, you might notice them feeling a little bit more active as well, especially if you're a Cancer rising, or if you're in a lunar perfection year, as I am. And so what we're looking at is really the moon being in Aries conjunct Jupiter and forming a sextile with Mercury, who's in domicile in Gemini. There's this really great thing happening right now where a lot of the planets are sitting in their domicile, particularly the personal planets. So you have Mercury in domicile in Gemini. We have Venus in domicile in Taurus. We have Mars in domicile in Aries. Saturn is, we skip Jupiter because Jupiter's in Aries as well. Won't go back to Pisces where Jupiter is domicile for another few months. But Saturn
Mhm.
is also in domicile. So these 7 traditional planets are close to or in their domicile signs. It's kind of interesting the way that that's all kind of locked in. Um, and the way that I'm kind of reading this is life is kind of moving really fast right now. This whole, especially with the Venus conjunct Uranus, which we experienced last week from the recording of this episode, it's just
Mhm.
a lot of stuff shaking up and making us set our priorities straight, changing what our priorities are and where we place our value, where we find our worth, how we define our worth. And it's
Mhm.
like, I no longer have time for this. I'm not messing around anymore, pivoting over here. This is where my focus is. And we're seeing a lot of that right now. And at the same time, Venus, again, domicile in Taurus, is going to be forming this square with a retrograde Saturn, also domicile in Aquarius, as well
Mhm.
as forming a trine with Pluto, also retrograde and in Capricorn. So we're kind of doing this underneath the surface soul makeover thing that's
Mhm.
identifying areas where we can grow. And that's going to start from the inside. And it's, of course, going to emerge on the outside over time, especially with 2 of those planets that are making these internal things happen being in retrograde for, I believe they both station direct again around October. So we have Venus making this feel very personal to us and saying, hey, my values are this. This is where my worth is. This is what's important to me. This is the roots that I'm choosing to plant so that it can grow into something and harvest around that October time. How convenient is that?
Mhm.
So this is just a really important time, the summer, looking at the summer as a whole, imagining the Cancer season, summer solstice chart as an initiation, sort of birth of the summer chart. What we're learning this summer is that we're trying to discern where we give our energy, what we say yes to, realizing that the world is filled with invitations to action. And sometimes those actions can be made in anger. So we really want to make sure, I'm looking at the fire signs with this, the moon being conjunct Jupiter in Aries. It's very like Spitfire. So we want to make sure that we're making conscious choices about who has access to our energetic endorsement. And I say endorsement
Mm.
because where energy goes, something flows, or where our attention goes, energy flows, is one of the cliche terms or phrases that does make sense. Also, what you resist persists is another phrase that I've heard. So if you're giving your anger to something, anger is a resistance, and you're giving that energetic endorsement to the thing you don't want more of, but you're putting more into it. So it's better to be conscious about who and what you give that energetic endorsement to. And you'll know it's a good energetic endorsement or investment because it feels good. So lean into that Venus with the discerning aspect from Saturn to really make those transformative from the roots up, from the soil to the roots up changes. And so one of the ways I would recommend applying all of this is to really make a list of what's important to you right now, what you want to grow in, and then refer to that list when you're making decisions. Does this lead to this? Does this add to this? These are my priorities. When I'm making a decision, does it affect my priorities? If not, then maybe it's not a heck yes. And if it's not a heck yes, then maybe it's a not right now, or maybe it's an altogether no, which is a complete sentence. You do not have to give reasons for saying no. And so we're looking at, again, that Venus trine Pluto actually perfects on the same day as the solstice. So it's often described as the not pretty work, right? It's the we're not putting makeup on it. We're changing it from the inside out. So we're deciding and committing to a reason to make profound, tangible change. Understand why, again, those priorities, why you're doing something. And then the very next day, even, Venus is actually going to ingress into Gemini. And this is a great time for giving yourself little love notes, thinking about Gemini and Venus love notes, which I thought was really funny. I laughed when I wrote that. But we're also emerging.
I love that.
Thank you. We're emerging and nurturing our energy, supporting ourselves in all the things that we share our energy with. So big themes for the summer.
As a Gemini whose chart ruler is Venus, I thrive off of little love notes. And so my amazing husband he'll write them on like my granola bar boxes. And so like when I open it up, like it'll be there. So I'm like eating something with love, right? I have sticky notes all over my house because he's like left them around for those sorts of reasons. So when you're like little love notes, I'm like, yes, everyone should do that. It makes your whole world so much better.
Never underestimate words of affirmation, whether it is your love language or just a nice bonus. It's just so helpful.
Yeah. Words of affirmation is 100% also my love language. Again, mine Venus too. Gemini.
Yeah. So, my Mercury is combust my sun and opposite my moon in the first. So other people's opinions really mean a lot to me. And that becomes a detriment and a strength depending on who's saying what at any given time. But so words of affirmation are a lovely little gift and mean a lot more than you can imagine to anybody who receives them. So this is also a really great excuse to just, as your first impression of somebody, compliment them. I love when I'm trying to find a nice way to meet someone and I'm trying to break that awkwardness, I'll just find something about them that I can compliment and be like, oh my gosh, I love this sweater you're wearing today, or your hair looks awesome. And then they immediately feel more comfortable because they know you're nice, and then they can be nice because they feel safe. And it creates a very good bridge that is that Taurean, Venus-y, Libran kind of thing going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that I recommend doing, especially if you are, figuring out is something a heck yes or is something a heck no, and you might be in the middle, it is perfectly valid to ask your guides to help you in those situations. And I cannot stress this enough. Even recently, I had a call. It was during Mercury retrograde. And I basically, before I even got on the call, I was like, if it is not a absolutely 100% no doubt in my mind, yes, by the end of this call, I am not agreeing with it. So you guides need to make it a yes if you want me to do this. And by the end of the call, it was 100% yes. I can't talk about it. Sorry. But it was like, I don't even know if I can or cannot yet, but I'll let everyone know when it is, what it is. But it is it was by the end of it, 100% yes, no doubt in my mind. And I knew then that was my indicator that it was a heck yes. So whatever your specifications are for something to be a 100% yes for you, whether that is there is no doubt, or it feels like this energetically, or I get a feeling here in my body, whatever it is that feels aligned for you, don't be afraid to throw that at your guides, because they will 100% show up for you always and do that for you. If you don't get that 100% yes sign, or if it doesn't feel perfectly aligned, like you can also ask them, okay, it doesn't feel like a 100% yes. I wanted it to be, now it doesn't feel like one. Give me validation that it's not. and they will also do that. So I'm not just saying you have to trust that one time and then dive into it. You can also ask for further validation, because we both know very concretely how hard it is to trust things sometimes. And even with both of our abilities to see and feel and do, it still gets hard sometimes. So it is perfectly okay to ask for that validation as we really start figuring out and discerning what is a yes and what is no for us now going into this new season.
Yeah. And it's also important to recognize, on the Venusian topic, Venus also is desire. So sometimes your desire can get in the way of feeling aligned because you know what you want, but is that what's appropriate? Is that what's best? And great point at this time, Venus is interacting. Let me just double check this. I think she's got earlier in the week. There it is. Venus forms a sextile with Neptune. So earlier in the week, that square with Saturn perfects. So there may be some conflicts or arguments or, condescending words that might come out. There may also be like a limiting of resources at that time. And then so that's on the 18th, the very next day, Venus will kind of receive a salve on that when she forms this sextile with Neptune, which might be apologies for what I said yesterday, or witnessing your emotions and really leaning into what it feels like to have what you desire, and then seeing what that daily life looks like. And if the rest of the life goes along with the feeling and is sustainable, it's a great time for that too. Spiritual perspectives on relationships. I also really like the feeling of minimalism and surrealism with this, simply because Neptune is more about what's intangible and Venus is about what feels right. So if you, remove clutter and have just the raw feeling of existing, where does that put you? And where are you drawn without the distractions?
We were just talking about this the other day, or like yesterday. I was like, because almost everyone in my house is neurodivergent. Like, let's just start there, with the exception of my oldest daughter, everybody, all of them. And we all struggle with it in different ways and get benefits of it in different ways. And so the other day, Weston, my husband, and I were sitting there like, okay, what do we need to feel more comfortable? And it was like clutter here and clutter there. And there's areas where he was like, I can't get myself to do it. Will you help? And I was like, yeah. And then there's areas where I was like, I can't get myself to do this. Can you help? And that is super helpful too, especially when it comes to mental clutter, is if you want to align your space, get through that, like find a buddy.
Yep.
This is a perfect time for that. Like when I look at the energy of it, it's like, yeah, more buddies.
Yeah. Yeah. My partner and I are constantly talking about, like, my brain's not equipped for this. How do you feel about it? And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so there. I'm like, I can do this. So I every day thank God for Dan, because we are each neurodivergent in very contrasting ways. And I say contrasting because there's a version of the word complement that is complement with the E in there. We complement each other in that he fills my voids and I can be useful where where he finds gaps and needs energy and I can provide. And I really think that it's funny, we both realized our neurodivergences after I made this Venus talisman. So it was, a Venus talisman to strengthen your relationship. And then we found this big thing that was like a make or break in the relationship. By the way, your brains work completely differently from one another. How are you going to handle it? And it made me so much more willing to understand and so much more willing to wait and listen and all of those things, which in relationships, especially with this Saturn square coming up, you may find differences. And it's a matter of how willing are you to let that person be that person so that you can be you and complement each other using compliments of love notes. Haha. It all comes together in the end.
Yeah. Do you have any specific like things you do on the solstice typically every year, or even for this one, that you like, rituals or card pulls? Like, is there anything that you specifically like to do?
I love, like, this is one of my favorite times of the year to just have a fire ring with my family and just do like little camp out kind of things with making s'mores, or if you're just me, I just burn up the marshmallow to watch it burn, but that's my Venus and Aries talking. So, but it's just nice to really be present for the hours of daylight in the day and to honor that they're there. And to then, this is the harder part for me, but to then kind of adjust to the fact that the days are getting shorter and begin adjusting my own rhythm to the rest that is now kind of coming in, and looking forward to the rest of the year. And I don't know, there's a lot of looking forward that I do, because it is that point in the year where it's like, all right, next comes fall, next comes this, but right now I'm here.
Yeah.
So it's more of a consciousness thing. I know many people have beautiful practices that go along with it, but that's always been my little personal one with my upbringing.
Yeah.
But if you have amazing practices, feel free to drop it in the comments because I'm open to suggestions.
Yeah, totally. I typically do a card pull just because I usually do a card pull on any big astrological anything just to see what's going on. And then kind of similarly, we always try to go to like the beach. I live right by the beach of a lake. So we always try to go to the beach and spend a lot of time there because it's my favorite place in the entire world. And it honors a lot of that summer coming in. It feels like summer starting. The kids are typically out of school, not this year because of everything caught on fire, literally. They will be shortly after, but that's fine. And sometimes I like to cultivate something in my yard. Not a lot of stuff grows where I live. Like it's very hard to get anything to grow around my house. But even if it's just like watering, I have a bunch of chamomile in the backyard. So you might just like do that really quick. It's just something about like growing into that next space. And then of course I stay up fairly late because I like the night. And so but that's the other half of it that I do. I used to do a lot of like pouring libations to different like deities when I was actively practicing Hellenismos. There's a lot of different stuff that you can do. It is a really cool time to like move, like alter stuff or any spiritual stuff, like move and switch it up because it is a new half the year, new season, new start, new beginning. So if you need to clean your workspace just to like wipe stuff down and reorganize, it's a really wonderful time to do that. That it can also be a very powerful ritual to like rearranging the energy around you or your altar, even your bookcase, if that's like where you feel like the most activation. Those are talismans, which we talk about extensively. So moving those around too can also be really healing and activating. It's less spring cleaning and more energy organization. And that doesn't mean it can't be cluttered or chaotic if that feels comfortable to you. It's just moving the energy so it feels new and fresh.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
We start
Yeah.
looking at like, what renovations do we want to do? How do we want to redecorate? Rather than cleaning, it's like what aesthetic, what nesting do we want to be in? And like, how do we want to be prepared when the light starts waning? So it's a beginning of that process as well. It's a great point. I never really thought about that as a ritual, but it is something that we do.
Yeah, it's a very much a ritual for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. To me, it still feels like I lament the end of Gemini season. I love Gemini season. And so it's always kind of like, oh, like I love Cancer season too. It's fine, but it's not Gemini season. And so that's always kind of like, there's always kind of like a bittersweetness there too, but it is like a start of summer. So I like really throw my energy into that. Living in a place where the seasons are so definitive, I don't even focus on the loss of light until like it gets cold.
Yeah.
The cold is what I don't like more than the loss of light.
Yeah. Oh, for me, it's because I get up so early. I love when, for the record, I get up at like 4:30 in the morning. And so in the winter or in the darker months, I'm exercising in the dark and there's no light and I'm just dragging, but I have a lot to do. So it's not exactly with the rhythm of nature that I'm doing this, but when I'm in the summer, it's nice because I'm exercising and I watch the light peeking up over the horizon. There's a window that faces exactly where the sun comes up. So as I'm working and doing all these things, I can feel the energy of the daylight coming in with me. And it's just this nice, supported, comforting feeling. And I lament that when winter comes around. There's something about that light that just makes me feel seen, and supported.
I totally get that. I totally get that. Also a great time for talking to your guides and just like checking in, like have a touch base with your guides. If you haven't chatted with them before, or if you've feel disconnected, whatever it is, just like touch base, just be like, hey, I love all of you. I appreciate you. Thanks for being here. Whatever I need to know, bring it to me, and go from there is enough.
I just got a ping of like a don't forget. This is Cancer season. It's summer. As we're taking in the last vestiges of these long days, conscious rest, existing on purpose, as Emily likes to say. This is your time to just be. And, there will be more opportunities for conscious rest when the cold months set in, but this is your time to really be able to like go outside and exist with nature. And really, like, I know this is going to sound weird, but I do this all the time. So don't feel weird if you want to do it too. Commune with a tree, sit under a tree, put your hand on the tree and just talk to the tree. Trees have a lot to say. They're super kind. They're super wise. And I love trees. They're such good friends. That's why I've always lived around them, and I will always live around trees.
Yeah.
Also, I have
Same.
a lot of earth in my chart. So
Critters too.
Mhm.
Talk to the squirrel. You don't have to touch it.
Yeah.
Talk to it.
Excellent caveat.
The
Don't
other
touch the
day,
squirrel, just talk to the squirrel.
I have a weird thing with squirrels. It's a whole thing. I've had multiple times in my life squirrels just run up me like I'm a tree. It's happened
Mm.
repeatedly. It's actually quite an inside joke amongst a lot of people who know me because it just happens. It's just a thing. But the squirrels around here carry the plague, like the actual plague. And so you can't touch them because you'll die. But then I see all these videos on TikTok, and of course, like they're like calling the squirrels to them or feeding them, and like first part of me, instant fear because I'm like, oh no, you're gonna get the plague. Then I realized that is really only living around here and like back that off. The second half is like, dang it, like I wish the squirrels around here didn't carry the plague. And so I could have a squirrel buddy too, but you can totally talk to them. Do talk to them just from a distance.
Yeah. Today we found
But
out
birds
Emily's a Disney
too.
princess.
La, 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 la. No, but I mean, the critters are around. If something crosses your path, just like say hi. Like they understand so much more energy than we give them credit for. Like you see that with your pets, and a lot of times we just give that like, oh, they're domesticated or they're attuned with us or whatever. Because it's all animals.
Mhm.
It's all animals.
Yeah, those pets have chosen to cooperate with you and coexist with you.
Yeah.
I don't really consider
Nothing.
I consider it living with my pets. I don't think I own my dogs or that I'm their owner. If anything, the dynamic is that like I serve them for sure. So so it's definitely a coexistence where they agree to support me and I agree to sustain and support them.
Exactly. And nothing will tell you or show you that quicker is if you've done any work on horseback ever.
Mm.
If you're having a bad day, all of a sudden your horse is
Yeah.
you're having
I
a
had
good
that
day, everything
experience.
goes great. It's pretty nuts.
I had that experience with a camel. I was in Egypt and
Mhm.
we got, we were on like what was a tour thing. And so they were like, we've already it's set up for you to be able to ride these camels. And I was like, oh, there's something about this that just feels takey advantage of I don't know how you want to say that. So I get on the camel and I'm immediately like, I'm sorry. I know you probably have to do this all day long. And that my camel had such an attitude. And I was just like, I'm trying to apologize though, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to make this better. And then I like tuned into my mom, who was also riding one, and like her camel was chill. Her camel was fine with her, and they were just like having a good time. And I'm like, I'm trying to apologize, and maybe he just needed to be left alone and like let him do his job. But whatever it was like the camel, you could feel the difference, and probably exploited, but. Yeah, it was one of those situations where it's like, I don't know how to make this whole situation better. And I'm being like, there was a lot of pressure around it as well. And I was just, yeah.
Yeah.
So I sent the
It's
camel
also
a lot of
really
love.
it's also a really interesting thing, especially now. And I always want to remind people when we talk about talking to your animals or anything like that, you don't need to hear something from them in your head. You don't even need to see an image from them in your head. You can, sometimes it works that way. Sometimes it's just a feeling or a just knowing too. Like all of a sudden you'll feel comfortable or you'll feel uncomfortable or you'll feel happy or you feel tired or something like that after you try to tune into an animal. And that's enough. And then you can send a feeling back. And that's a perfectly good conversation as well. Sometimes you'll just know that squirrel is having a rough day. And that's what you do. And you can be like, I'm sorry, I'll throw you peanuts later. Like, perfectly valid. There is no one way that this looks. So when we talk about tuning in, Krista and I actually tune in really different when we channel and talk through and with stuff. It's very interesting. We know each other's channeling, I think, very well. So usually I know exactly how they're going to channel, and I think they know how I'm going to channel, and we just like bounce off each other in that space. But for you, it might just be a process of exploration. Animals are wonderful teachers. That's part of the reason they're here, is to be teachers, at least from what I've channeled. Same with trees and a lot of plants. So if you're working on learning how to channel, that is a wonderful way to do it. And in the summer, when everything's active and open like this, it's a perfect time to tune in. It doesn't just have to be the solstice or the start of Cancer season or anything like that. It's just a wonderful time to like let them teach you about yourself. It's quite an amazing experience.
But given how much time we've channeled talking to animals, I have a feeling that this is a great opportunity to just lean into that energy, because the animals are more out and about than ever at this time of year as well. So this is,
Right.
your biggest chance to be able to see them during the summer.
Krista also talks to their spiders, and it like makes
Ah,
me happy.
listen, we have
I love it so
agreements.
much.
Okay. That's what we come to with spiders. I do talk to spiders a lot. But that's because I used to be terrified of them. And then when you live in the woods and you grow up in the woods, you're just going to have spiders in your house. And
Mhm.
when you're in the woods, they end up being bigger spiders. So at some point, it's just like, I will walk into a room, and if a spider's there, I will tell the spider, I appreciate that you're looking for a place to live. This is not the best place because it's not as safe for you as you might feel. Simply because people exist here. And especially in my guest spaces. So I always say that I trust by the next time I come in here, you will have found a better place to thrive. And I will, give ideas. I'll tell them like, it's this season, you could probably go outside again, whatever happens. But right now I'm going to need the space for something else. So please, for your own interest, find a more accommodating space. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't.
And Zelda, her he takes care of it.
Sometimes, yeah, because I was like, I don't want to be the one to have to intervene in those situations. And this is a specific time when Emily and her mother were coming to stay with me, and we had quite the large spider that had taken up residence in our guest bathtub. And I was like, listen, every time I went in there, I saw the spider, just a leg sticking out. And I was like, you're still there. And I know you're still there. And I want you to be okay. So I really suggest you find somewhere else to go, please. And we had this dialogue for like a month. And it got to the point where I was not going to be able to just sit back anymore, because the time was coming for Emily to come and I needed to make the space ready. And the next thing I know, Zelda, my corgi dog, has taking care of it for us. I don't even know how she got to it. But yeah, so it was like nature, taking care of nature as compared to me having to intervene, which I felt was a little bit more divine.
Yeah,
and
totally.
I appreciated Zelda for that. Also, Zelda takes nothing. You don't mess with Zelda.
I've seen her body slam an ant. She's a great one.
I found out recently I did their birth charts, and like I can't find out what time of day they were born, but I know the days. So I know that the moon was enough in its sign that it wasn't going to go somewhere else throughout the day. Both my dogs are Aries moons, both of them, and they were born like
That
3
makes
days apart.
very
Makes
much
total
sense.
Yeah,
Though, actually.
Yeah.
That,
That's why they're
that
so
dynamic
sassy.
that tracks
Mhm.
hard.
Yeah.
That's great. Oh my
I don't
gosh.
know how I ended up with 2 Aries moon dogs.
They chose you.
They did. They really did. Jack's name came to us in a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we really appreciate you all. We do have a fun announcement. So we're going to be talking more in depth about this. And we're not launching this exactly on this day that this podcast episode launched, but we are actually going to start reaching out to you all on the 21st, on the solstice, I believe.
Yeah. Pretty sure that's when we figured it out.
Basically, Krista and I want to travel with you. That's like the best way of putting it. We have been working with an amazing company called Trova Trip, and we cannot wait to announce this. We've been how 8 months or something.
my
We've been doing
gosh.
this for so long.
So long.
But we are organizing a special international spiritual retreat with us. It's going to be so much fun. It's going to have a lot of healing, a lot of psychic channeling stuff, a lot of astrology stuff, and we want to travel with you all. So on the 21st, in both of our link trees, we're going to post a survey link because we don't know where we're going yet. That's on you guys. We want to hear where you want to go. We have some ideas. We're going to suggest on the survey link of where we've channeled it feels best for us to go. So just give us your opinion on what you think would be the best place or where you would want to travel with us. Also, anything you'd like us to include or any ideas you might have of what you would want to learn from us in person with you. It's not going to be a huge group that we travel with. So I just am going to preface that. It's not like some 50 people that are all going, but it is a very cool experience, and the entirety of this retreat will be completely taken care of with all the workshop and all the tours and the excursions and all the stuff that we're planning for you. So we're going to launch this survey link so we can get your opinions. The more we get, the quicker we get it, the quicker we'll be able to build the trip and launch that so that you guys can enroll in the trip. It is going to happen next spring. We need a while to turn it around and book things for all those many people. So don't think it's going to happen in the next 2 months or something. as far as when we actually do travel, it will be about next spring. But we're thrilled, and we've been
Yeah.
waiting forever to announce this.
Yeah. And don't worry, like once we get everything locked in and nailed down, we will be able to announce it, give details like exact dates and things like that. There will be plenty of time. We're going to take into account the state of whatever is going on at the time. So, I will be looking at the astrology. You can bet that's part of the reason why we're waiting for the solstice to announce it.
Yep.
And we're going to make sure that this is as energetically set up for success and planned and structurally set up for success as we can make it. And again, we're not taking a ton of people because it's a trip with us and you, and hopefully you want to meet us, but we also want to meet you, like not just have a crowd of people that we don't get to understand or know. So that is one of the reasons why this is going to be such an intimate kind of group. And also it just leaves a lot more space for sacred things to happen and for divine things to happen and that kind of thing. So we are really putting this energy first.
Yeah. And that's what we're really curating, is we're curating a lot of experiences where sacred and divine things will happen, where you can go on the retreat as one person and return as someone who's more activated, more connected to their guides, more connected to your soul self in a real way. So it's not so much like yoga retreat, that sort of thing, or even meditation retreat. It's like, let's go to these sacred divine places. Let's let your deities, your guides activate you, and let's be a resource for you to count on and experience this with, so we can experience it with you. We're really excited.
And we build into the trip how to take those lessons and those feelings of being so aligned home with you. This is not a vacation. This is a starting something new that will be able to carry through in your life. And this is just a crucial point where it's easier to access that energy of allowing yourself to be different and grow and evolve. And then you can take those tools, actual tools, home into your routine. And that's what we want to do, into your rhythm.
Yeah, exactly. So we will be sending out that survey link. It will be in our bios, all of that jazz, starting on the solstice. So look out for that. And we're so excited to announce it. We'll also remind you continually on the podcast until we get enough responses that we need. And then we'll close the link and start talking about the trip. And we can't wait.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so happy to just like let it out of my space. Like,
I know.
I wanted to say it forever.
It's like not being able to open a gift until whatever day. And now we're going to be able to. Yeah.
We're so excited. And this is probably we're probably going to do this at least once a year, probably going forward is kind of the goal. So we're open to going different places and doing different stuff and all that jazz. So it's really exciting. But we thank you so much for being here, for being part of this space, of sharing this beautiful community with us. Our listeners are the best people ever.
They are.
They're just the best. Every time we get an email from you or a comment, we're just like, gosh, we love you. It just feels so fun. And we just really appreciate your energy. So thank you for being here. And we hope that you take this time and take all the cool stuff that's happening and you go make some magic. Dun, dun, dun.
I think we're getting really good at that. I'm so proud of us.
I am proud of us too. We can time things. Go us.
Yay.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.